and we should be live right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Hello.
Anyway, there's so much happening as usual. It never slows down. It always goes faster. Welcome. This is the forecast that we typically do at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time here in Merritt Island. Unfortunately, today we're an hour and 2 minutes late, whatever it is. It is what it is. Listen, I was just telling Elisa, I says, I'm sitting in my freaking lazy boy, and there's nothing lazy about Mel Carmine. I'm going 200 miles an hour, laying back as stretched out as that thing can go, and that's a comfortable one of the most comfortable lazy boys ever. And I'm saying I'm going 200 miles an hour. I'm texting, messages coming in on Telegram, everywhere, and it's nuts. So she's like, yeah, the same thing with me. I'm laying in bed, and I'm doing the same thing, Mel, like you. I'm going 200 miles an hour. So I thought I was the only one, so I didn't feel so, left out. But anyway, here we are. I mean, XRP lawsuit is completely dropped, but now we're talking about potentially, and this is where I say, where is the IQ here? If the lawsuit was dropped, right, and there's an appeal in place, I don't think you have to be an attorney to realize that the appeal of the SEC against Ripple is null and void. There's no case, guys, especially XRP Army 1.0. Listen, XRP Army 1.0. Listen. Okay. These people are unbelievable. Anyway, I believe there's going to be a Ripple countersuit because they spent $150 million on this frivolous lawsuit. And there's $500 billion, thanks to Jimmy Bally, over there in Texas, that hopefully, potentially, they pay out. That's how much damages. That means right now we're estimating that the XRP should have been about $11.50 had they never launched a lawsuit. I mean, that's bare bones minimum. Okay, so if you figure out where it is right now, how many XRP you own, and where it should have been, that means right now, technically speaking, that we should have about 6 times more money in the bank than we have right now. So I figured out, I said to Amber, they owe you a few $1 million, like shy of $9-10 million. So that's what they would owe us, for example, based on.
They don't owe me that much, but they owe me a little bit. So,
but that would put us on easy street for at least a couple of years, But that's where we're at, and there's a lot of more stuff in the news. Elisa has got some information on Cash Patel. Recently gone through an interview and other things. So we're just going to jump into it. Lisa, why don't you lead us off? And guys, welcome to the weekly forecast. Sorry we are late.
So, hey, everyone. So, first of all, I just want to apologize because last week I had a barking dog. And, when you're on Zoom, it kind of blocks things out. So I just kind of assumed it was going to get blocked out on StreamYard, which it wasn't. So my apologies. I wanted to kill her. I didn't. But yeah. So I apologize for the interruption.
You didn't go Christy Gnome on her, huh?
No, I wanted to, but I didn't.
Good.
Wow. So, I have a question. We're just talking about this XRP lawsuit, right? It's been 4 years. They beat it. I know that on a statement on X, Brad Garlinghouse, among other things, without going through the whole thing, he basically is quoted as saying, today is a victory and a long overdue surrender by the SEC, right? It's like a David and Goliath situation. But you mentioned just now, you guys, like how if they were suppressing all this and that what the value could have been and how it could have really naturally gone up. What is the deal with people like me who were in New York, who wanted to, Mel, I was talking to you about this a year ago, who wanted to buy XRP and we couldn't, that I could have got it at so much lower. I don't have the ability to go out of state. I'm not a resident of another state. So now by the time it was opened up and I was able to buy, I lost tons, God only knows what that would be. So there's a lot going on here, but I think last Wednesday is when, Ripple announced that the SEC had officially dropped the lawsuit. And, the suit was filed on Jay Clayton's last day as SEC chair. He accused Ripple of raising $1.3 billion through the sale of its XRP token without registering it as a security. And it comes on the heels of the new Trump administration, right, who really took two key moves. President Donald Trump signed an executive order, I believe this was March 6th, to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a U.S. digital asset stockpile, positioning the United States as a leader among nations in government digital asset strategy. And secondly, on the same day, March 6th, Trump appoints the former PayPal executive David Sachs as AI and crypto czar. So, this new role is supposed to help the U.S. policy on digital currency. But, it's interesting. I'd like to get your guys' feelings about where you think this is all going to end up and where we're kind of moving towards.
Well, okay, let's start. The reason they did that, of course, is because XRP is the key function for the new global financial system. The system is going to catch the rats. It's going to expose them. The cockroaches are going to be put into the lights. Of course, the Biden people filed suit to try to keep Ripple XRP technology from going forward and having a true valuation. It's the mechanism through which all financial transfers are going to take in the future. It can't be hacked. It can't be stolen. They can't steal funds along the way like you used to be able to do with the Swift wiring system. So they went after XRP because it's the financial transaction technology of the future. Now, it is being used now. Let's face reality, it is, for big stuff going on between the quantum financial system and the banks as they exist currently. But that's why they had to attack it. And the fact that they have dropped this attack, which I thought should have happened. I mean, if I was Trump, I would have fired everybody involved immediately and canceled the whole thing. But that's Donald Trump. He didn't, he seems to want to play this like TV show out. So it looks like he's doing everything the proper way when we all know he's dealing with a bunch of fucking criminals. So this is a good thing. It's bizarre. I'm looking, Mel, at the currency, at the price of XRP right now. It's down a little bit today. In fact, it's only at 246. It should be, of course, $20 at least. Also, XLM is down. There's no reason for them to be down. When a case like this is settled, the price should skyrocket. And of course, the intent is clearly that the other case is going to be dropped as well. The other aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I look at it is like this. There's so much money that's been being stolen that we found, we went to one department of the Treasury. We found $4.7 trillion missing.
Yeah.
And the XRP army is only asking for $500 billion. That's like chump change. Let's write the check already. You know what I mean? Okay.
Right.
Let's write the check already with the money that's being stolen, that's being recouped while we wait for these guys to go to prison and perp walked and brought down to whatever justice. I mean, if the American people are going to vote on it, you guys are all getting a death sentence. There's no way you're going to walk away from this one. So the bottom line becomes they have plenty of money to write a check for even $1 trillion. Yes, you're right. It should be at least $20. I agree with you. That price tag seems more in line to where it should be. I was expecting $20, $30 per XRP when the Quantum Summit happened. That didn't take place. Okay, as we are planning Quantum Summit Part 2, as we are planning Quantum Summit Part 3.
Okay, so to me, Mel, this is another case of suppression. You talk to people about this, the silver price being suppressed, the price of gold being suppressed, and we're all waiting for something to break through to make this whole old system collapse and the new system replace it. And I just don't know. I don't know quite where it is. I mean, I'm not an intuitive. I don't do that. But I've got a lot of people telling me tonight's a big night in the currency markets, that we expect some big news today, tonight, tomorrow. And then, of course, what has to follow is the public display or the public revelation of all this stuff, which is where we're going to get massive fluctuations in currency markets. I was going to ask you, what do you think of the rumor? Because the rumor is going around that XRP and XLM and all the really hot currency coins, all the really hot tokens are going to get to 50,000 or 100,000, and then the government's going to buy everybody out of it and take it all as a natural asset.
I'll be the first guy in line at 50,000. Say,
Yeah.
buy me out, baby. Let's go. As
Yeah.
long as you give me some, shit that's backed up by real gold or silver, some real assets. I'll be the. And if there's anybody in line ahead of me, I'm going to punch you out. I'm going to make sure I'm the first guy.
Okay, so Laura, you're an intuitive. Why don't you just do you get a gut feeling that like we're on the brink of something really big financially? I mean, do you feel that? Do you get it? Or some other big political announcements or something in the next, let's say, week? What do you get?
Yeah, I think something big is going to happen. Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus. It's not going to be there for much longer.
I'm sorry, what is?
Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus. Uranus is like a wrecking ball. Yeah,
sorry, I just want to make you say Uranus.
Okay, Mike. Yeah, you always have to.
All the Uranus
are going through a big. It's the wrecking ball. It's like the Tower card. It literally destroys and recreates.
Yeah.
But it's a frequency connected with truth. It's an upgrade, right? So Uranus has been in Taurus. Taurus is the second house. Taurus has to do with money, possessions, abundance. So outer planets move real slow. So when they are sitting in a sign, this is something that impacts generations. Mm-hmm. So Uranus is in harmony. There's a flow of energy between Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, the three outer planets. And that's really significant. And Uranus is a planet of instability that restabilizes once it's achieved the upgrade, right? So Pluto's all about, death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation. It went from Capricorn, now it's in Aquarius. That Capricorn energy, the death of the deep state, the awakening process, the transformation, the shift of these times that was very much hijacked and captured by this whole pandemic thing. It's all in harmony, though, with the North Node conjunct Neptune, Uranus and Taurus, and this Pluto moving into Aquarius. And all of it's very significant for massive breakthroughs and things that go from like feast to famine, like it can be a sudden shift and change that is a huge shock and surprise, because that's also what Uranus rules. So yeah, I'm feeling it and I'm seeing it in the astrology.
It's interesting because the planets, the gas giant planets, Uranus, Saturn, or Uranus, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Uranus, I never heard that one before, but the Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, they have the most spin energy, bulk, angular momentum in the solar system. And people don't understand that that's far more influential than, for instance, gravity in terms of human consciousness. Spin energy is how we gate information from higher sources, higher dimensions. And the fact that they're in those positions is really significant because it's going to affect how people behave. And in fact, like you said, what happens on this planet. So bulk angular momentum is what you got to keep your eyes on. And the gas giants have it in abundance. And Pluto has a lot because it's at a 60-degree angle. So it slams, when it hits and crosses the plane of the ecliptic, it has a big effect. So that's exciting, interesting stuff. I didn't know we were in that configuration right now.
Yeah, so it's a complete rehabilitation and an upgrade. And to have all three outer planets in harmony with each other. I mean, a couple of years ago, Uranus was squaring Saturn. Mm-hmm. So Saturn was putting its clutches in, Uranus, the Great Awakening, by wanting to control it, dark Saturn. Even astronomers have seen the rings are actually dissolving. The Saturn moon matrix technologies, the way that they've been able to throw us into the shadow side of these planetary energies is just not possible anymore. Not with these kind of aspects.
So Laura, I have to ask you, Uranus probably, I would venture to say, is the proper way of pronouncing it, not Uranus.
Well, it's just unless you want to have a bunch of jokes.
Uranus, dude.
And all the Klingons that are in Uranus.
In America, they have to make everything.
It's an unfortunate name. Let's just decide that, okay? It's an unfortunate name, and it's not the way Carl Sagan pronounced it, which was Uranus, because he didn't want to say Uranus on Cosmos like 15,000 times. So, come on, yeah, we all know what it is.
Right now, so it's appropriate.
Guys, let's take Hecklefish's advice and let's put all the Uranus jokes behind us.
Yeah, that's kind of why
I like that, Mike.
Yeah, I like the setup, Elisa. You know why? It's like me and you are talking about stuff that's in the news, and then we got Laura Eisenhower, the great granddaughter of the great president Dwight D. Eisenhower, say, "Wait a minute, let me look at the stars and let me see if you guys are bullshitting anybody."
Yeah, no, it's great. And so I just noticed a comment in, that just came in from Stephen T. Bonney. I hope I said your name right. And he asks a question. He says, with BlackRock and other corrupt management companies buying it up, referring to XRP, do you expect it to be manipulated like COMEX and the markets? Any thoughts on that?
None. How about you, Mike?
Repeat it again one more time. I sorry, I was distracted.
Yeah, sure. So with BlackRock and other corrupt management companies buying it up,
Yep.
do you expect it will be manipulated like COMEX and the markets?
Well, it is being manipulated because it should be much higher than it is now, XRP. And yes, everything is being held very tightly until this big financial event is ready to go, which could be anywhere from hours to at the most 7 days away. So we're right there for this to happen, I believe. And yeah, I think that everything's being held very tightly right now to keep it from exploding, and it is going to explode. And the world is never going to be the same after this financial event happens.
Well, look, speculation. We can't really speak out of like facts because we don't really have the facts. We can only speculate. And
well, I will tell you this, Mel. I do have a number of people contacting me, showing me their bank accounts. And I'm just going to tell you, there is massive amounts of money moving in the background to shift this planet. And there are people at levels above our pay grade that are getting funds. And if they get funds, then that means eventually it comes to us. And there's nothing that they can do to stop that. Nobody can keep us out of this game.
Can I give you my SWIFT number and tell them that I'm waiting?
Sure, I'll pass it along.
I'll tell you what. Look, let's look at things logically speaking. Yes, the ETFs are coming. Yes, the United States has put together a reserve of currency, started with XRP, Solana, and ADA Cardano. And then 2 hours later, oh, by the way, we forgot about Ethereum and Bitcoin, which is really that's a breadcrumb. We forgot. That's what they started with. We forgot, which means you should forget about it too. Okay, because it's going to go away at some point because it's antiquated dinosaur shit, and the dinosaurs went extinct, and so will Ethereum, and so will Bitcoin. That's my opinion. I'm speculating, but think about the fact that other countries are probably 2 months, 3 months, 6 months away from saying, I think we should have a reserve currency too. And what if those reserve currencies from other countries like the United States of America, I'm talking first world countries like Spain, Italy, France, Germany, Japan, you understand? First world countries, South Korea, say, hey, we need to have a reserve also. And all of a sudden they get what's called FOMO, fear of missing out. Countries who are not buying $2,000 worth of XRP, they're buying billions of dollars worth of XRP. Once that comes into play, and once it's go time, and they have to really figure out, are we going to merge SWIFT and XRP together, or is XRP going to swallow, the SWIFT system whole and move forward without them? Once all of these things play out, either or, it doesn't matter because we're still moving $100 quadrillion per year conservatively once we move to this new system. So it doesn't matter whether SWIFT and Ripple become one, part of the treasury, part of the RLUSD, part of the whole entire system. It doesn't matter. It's still going to be worth well over $50,000, $100,000 conservatively. The number we came up with the other day was $172,000 per XRP if $100 quadrillion a year moves through the XRP system. Now, let's say SWIFT moves in and partners up with that. So maybe it's half of that, which is still a shitload of money per XRP. Half of 172,000, you do the math, right? It's a tremendous amount of money. So when this is all allowed to happen and countries start to get FOMO, okay, fear of missing out, and they start to have their own reserve system, and it starts with XRP, okay, Solana, and maybe other ones. Who knows? Maybe VeChain may be invited into the family of the ISO tokens because it's so robust and it's been here for 9 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Mel, I hear that that's already happened and they're just not letting us see it yet. That's what I hear. That's all happened. They're just not letting us see it. And when they do, that exact scenario is going to play out. And if the true value of XRP is 172,000 per coin, they would be very smart to cut it off at 50,000 or 100,000 and say, you can't buy it anymore, but we're going to buy you out of the 100,000 because think about the profit that then puts in our treasury. So
that's not even all that happened. Yeah, that's not the argument. The argument is that 98% of the people who hold XRP don't understand or understand or overstand its true value of how big it's going to get. There's only maybe 2% of us that really understand the true value of how big it's going to get. And these are the guys that, but the buyout is going to happen mostly at $30, $40, $50, $100, $200. Once it goes past those numbers, they have already gotten back most of the XRP they wanted on the cheap. Why would they pay? They're going to hold out to the very end and say, oh, make the announcement. Okay, now we got to take care of the guys like Mike Bara and Mel Carmine. They realize the value. Yes, and they're right. And yes, we're going to have to pay them handsomely if we want the rest of it. They might not even need it. They may not even need it. You could just cash in your money at some point because the government says, hey, the XRP is worth this much because we have to move this much around the globe and we need to do it fast and cheap. Therefore, this is what the value is, and you and I could just go to the bank and cash it in, give us rainbow currency, give us whatever currency is backed by gold and silver, put it on a debit card system that runs on what? The blockchain, and voila, we go on vacation for the rest of our life. We book a vacation that never ends. We go from one vacation to the next vacation.
None of us are going to stop. You're not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. There's no retirement for us. There's like you say, some nice vacations, but we have things to do and people to wake up and stuff.
I try on vacation. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah. Not for us. I mean, we're all workers, and this is just the beginning of the transition that's going to happen. And, unfortunately you signed up to be leaders. All of you did. And you're going to stuck being leaders. You're going to get the occasional break, but your job is
those breaks. I'll take those breaks. But what's really kind of cool is that what I'm really looking forward to is that if we're moving towards that financially, and obviously, Mel, Mike, you guys know more about this than I do. So I had two comments. One is that just being the conspiracy realist that I am, I would tend to believe everything you're saying, Mike, that things are done already, but it's just a matter of the rollout and when we're going to actually see it. And secondly, when it comes to, all of this wealth that we're going to have, I'm assuming that a lot of those technologies are going to come with it. So here we are as leaders in a position to help so many people, help with whatever that may be, whether it's helping people to adjust and transition to the new systems mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or to help people heal, that aren't aware of what's going on and just their bodies, and us being able to live to, 1,000 years old and continue this good work. So it's exciting. I wanted to say something though about something in the news right now that's really pissing me off. I don't know if you guys have been hearing, this whole Tesla nonsense business that's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real. Listen, I don't have a Tesla. I don't have any intention of owning a Tesla. I don't want an electric car, whatever. I think they're really ugly, these new ones. They're like Transformers, but that's not the point. The point is that you have these lunatics out there that are, burning them, vandalizing. They're throwing Molotov cocktails, at dealerships. They're throwing feces. They're destroying the charging stations. I mean, that in and of itself is dangerous, right? This is domestic violence as far as I'm concerned. They're calling Elon Musk, a Nazi. Why? Because he's cutting government waste. I mean, I just can't get my arms around that. And more importantly, what do you guys think? Like, is this just a bunch of lunatic liberals, or is someone behind this? Is like, what do we think is really going on here?
First off, I just want to say, they don't realize how socially engineered they've become. They feel like they're the ones that are the awakened. And they're battling, this dark force. And it's actually like the other way around. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be smooth sailing. I mean, we're talking about the deep state. The United States has become the deep state. We did not win the war. Germany surrendered, but the Nazis didn't. So the indoctrination, the social engineering is very much a part of the darker agenda.
Hell, Laura, the Confederacy never surrendered. Lee gave Grant his sword at Appomattox, but the Confederacy still exists as a legal entity. So Nazis sure didn't surrender. You're right.
Yeah. And I just want to say that, just to bring it back to the astrology, Mars is square Chiron right now, and it's going to be squaring Pluto. These squares with Chiron mean that trigger events are created to bring about the most violent and unevolved response to deep traumas and wounds. When we're not looking at our traumas and wounds, and we're not getting to the core and root of it, people just act out. They become violent. They go crazy. They're just triggered. And if they believe that they're fighting for something, it fuels the passion. But if they don't understand the deeper roots, like we talk about, then they're never going to get to the bottom of things. And that's why they're going to keep spinning in, this kind of dynamic for a bit. And there's going to be a lot of casualties too with the Pluto square. Things are reaching such a boiling point for the ego identity, because we've been in this addiction personality matrix, very much in this dependency bomb with this inverted system, which I say a lot. But to begin to dismantle all of that, it's also like a heroin addict going through withdrawal, right? On top of being triggered, and on top of like the way that the mind has been convinced and influenced to believe something that isn't actually real. And that's the Neptune North Node Pisces thing that we're dealing with. So there's going to be a lot of that. And those that are able to be triggered and redirected and actually dig deep and go down those rabbit holes and peel back the layers, they're the ones that are going to be on a very powerful healing trajectory. And that's very much what I feel this administration represents. But they got it all flipped around so that you think it's the other way around. And it's going to be hard for those souls. And it's going to be hard for those of us that have to contend with them. And it's been going on since, it's been going on for a long time. And if you look at this Mars square Chiron, it's also the gender confusion. I've got friends talking about their children getting sex changes. And it's like, this is like more of a common theme than, So I just wanted to say that.
Here's where I'm looking at it. Okay. And I think I think at this point, we need to abandon the left, because the people that are left behind at this point are beyond help. They cannot be helped. The people that are, firebombing and throwing feces at Tesla car dealerships, or if you own a Tesla and you're stuck at a red light and you're next to a liberal, you might be in danger. Okay. We can no longer we have to come to a realization point that we can no longer help these people. These people are beyond our control. We have to allow the law and the military and Donald Trump and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to do whatever it is they got to do, okay, and treat these people as domestic terrorists and push down whatever punishment is deemed to them. Whether they're going to give up a bigger fish to maybe get a 15-year sentence instead of a 20-year sentence, that's entirely up to them. But this is going to go all the way up to George Soros, whether it's a clone and whether they're going to perk walk the real one or the clone. It's a movie for the normies, not us. We're awake. Remember that. Okay. We're here, and you guys are still vibrating way down here. That's the problem. And I will tell you this in no uncertain terms. These arrests are going to come. Donald Trump is the most patient guy in the world. He's allowing things to play themselves out for a reason. Okay. And there's going to be hell to pay. He said specifically, there's going to be 20-year sentences handed down to these people who are firebombing Tesla car dealerships like they're giving away fucking candy. And you're going to do 20 years. You're not going to plea bargain your way out of it. You're not going to get out on good behavior. You're going to do 20 fucking years to the last second, the last day, the last minute. You're going to be there for 20 years. So keep up with your shenanigans. Go have at it, because we're coming for you. Okay? If you think the American people are just going to roll over and play dead, and you don't think that Donald Trump is not going to push the button on you, you're dead wrong. You belong in North Korea. If that's where you want to live, you should book a one-way ticket and get the fuck out of our country and do it fast. Okay? We have a lady here that says, I don't know if it's a lady or if it's a man. He says, how can everybody be wealthy without a loaf of bread being $2,000 a loaf? How would you answer that, Mike? I'm going to go to you first.
Well, not everybody will be wealthy. Everybody will be better off than they are today, but there will still be layers. And if you want that bigger, nicer house up on the hill, guess what? You're still going to have to work for it. You're still going to have to work a little harder than the guy next to you. If you want that, you're entitled to have that, but you're going to have to put out a little bit more. So that is not going to change. It's just that nobody will not be able to put food on their table or be out in the rain. Hopefully there won't be any stray dogs or cats anymore either. We'll take care of all that. So it's going to be a better world at the base, but it's not going to be fantastic. I mean, look, the Doge dollar payments, right? 5,000 a month. You can do pretty good on 5,000 a month, but you're not rich by any stretch. You're not driving a Ferrari. So if you want that thing and you're entitled to want that, it's fine. That's what you're going to get. So we're not moving toward kind of a communist system where that does happen. And, the answer to the question is, who's going to bake the loaves of bread? Who's going to dig the ditches? Well, AI is going to. Machines are going to do all that. Who's going to pick the strawberries if we get rid of all the illegal aliens? The machines that should have been doing it for the last 20 years. That's what's going to happen. Now, to the previous question.
This is the problem. This is exactly the problem. They don't know how to roll all of this out. They have the technology that nobody has to go to work tomorrow if they were to roll it all out. Right, and let the satellites do whatever it is the satellites have to do to man the potato picking, the carrot picking, the grooming of the lettuces on the fields. Nobody has to do all of this freaking crazy back work, but they don't know how to do a universal basic income. Do we do a universal basic income, or do we kill everybody?
That's what. And I think, and the answer is, we're gonna go. I've heard that they had a choice between the apocalypse and Star Trek for the future, and they chose Star Trek 20 some years ago. So we're in the Star Trek future where everybody kind of has a minimal survival and that, there's not a lot of want like there is now. Going back to the previous question about the Tesla thing, I wrote a book in 2010 called The Choice. And what I said basically was, look, the universe is geometric and it's binary. So what you have is a situation where everybody's being forced since December 21st, 2012, open the window. 2024, I believe, closed the window when the Mayan Yuga cycle ended. There's about a 12-year difference there. So everybody's had to pick a side. That's what this has been about. So the people who have picked the side of Satan, let's call it Satan, let's call it the bad guys, they're the ones attacking Teslas. They're the ones smearing their shit all over a Tesla and firebombing car dealerships. By the way, electric cars, which all you environmentalist wackos think are a good thing for the economy when they're actually, or not the economy, but the environment when they're actually a net drag on the environment. That stuff is happening because these people have picked their sides. And that's why, Laura, I think we're getting the resistance to binaryism that they've come up with here desperately, because they've been forced into this position where they had to take a stand, either or, and some of them don't want to, and they resent that. So we got all this crazy transgenderism stuff. Look, you're either a boy or a girl. It's pretty straightforward. God made us that way. God made the whole universe probably that way. Just pick a side and get over it. And so there are some people who resisted picking a side. They're now on the other side. So I think what's playing out is this frustration and anger, and they're just the people that picked the wrong side. They're maybe 20% of the population, and like Mel, like you say, we just got to move on without them. They're trying to take care of them has held us back from the future we should have had at least 7 years ago, when Donald Trump took office and the fireworks went off at the end of the inaugural parade. And the letters did not spell out USA. They spelled out USR, United States Republic. And Donald Trump told you right there on Inauguration Day where we were going. It looks like we're finally here. We're going to get there very soon. And some people just can't stand that. And we just have to leave them behind. If that means putting them into prison for 20 years, Mel, that's what it means. Just get them out of the way and move on into the future.
I just think that if they've been able to socially engineer people to become really disconnected from the soul, there's got to be a way to reconnect. If you can mind control a perfectly benevolent person to become an assassin, you can undo a person from some level of indoctrination, but the willingness has to be there. Because the problem is with these people, the willingness isn't there. They're so attached to this that, I mean,
well, it's interesting. That's really, I tell a story in The Choice about a guy named Kozyrev, who was a Russian physicist who was an absolute genius. And as you look through this, you could tell, as I look at his life, I think to myself, this is a guy who asked for in this life to come up with some extraordinary discoveries. That's what he came here to do. And you know how the universe arranged for that to happen, how God arranged for that? He put him in one of Stalin's gulags for 10 years. And in those 10 years, his life was so horrific that all he did was think about, why do the stars shine really? What how does this work? Are they hollow inside? And he understood dynamic torsion, which is the functional strength, the energy behind the spin energy of the planets, Laura, which is what makes astrology work. He came up with all these brilliant discoveries, and he wrote all these papers about them, but he had to go through that hell first before because that's the only way he could quiet his mind enough to think seriously about this future. So that's the same thing with these people. If they have to spend 20 years in prison, maybe during that 20 years, they will do enough meditation and enough thinking to understand what they missed out, why they're on the wrong side, and maybe we can reclaim them after that time. So I just kind of look at it as like, that's how they get their soul back, is they have to go away and think about it for a while. That's a long answer to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I definitely think there needs to be more rehabilitation. Like I watched that show where the guy goes to all the prisons and lives there for like 5 days to a week. And he was incarcerated for 12 years for a crime he didn't commit. And he travels to all these different prisons and he lives in them to experience it. And there's one that really gave the prisoners respect and believed that they could rehabilitate, gave them good food, played games with them, like the prison guard, like it was like a community, and you would be encouraged to work. I mean, there has to be rehabilitation, and this whole idea of punishment is not fair. We've been so assaulted and bombarded for thousands of years. It's passed down generation to generation. We're dealing with bioweapons. We're dealing with mind control. We're dealing with tainted food. We're dealing with chemtrails and all these
chemtrails. Holy hell! It's been crazy.
Geoengineering and the things that we watch and that we're from the minute we're born. So, I mean, I think I agree with you guys that we have to move on, but we can establish rehabilitation centers for those, that are willing. And just imagine, just images or just our true galactic history and positive images and just ways to, really, assist people. Because the thing is, we're going to be needing to help those that have been freed of child trafficking and pedophilia rings and SRA. And we need to hold compassion for the ones that have been blackmailed, that are playing that dark position because they're frightened of the hatred that we're going to cast upon them for the role that they played. So we need to unwind it gently with the resources there, but move forward so that we're not trying to convince them to have an open mind to even receiving the rehabilitation. Because then we just get stuck, like you guys said. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think that's somebody else's problem. I think that's for me, that's somebody else's problem. I think
there's enough people that are called to create those healing centers. And the thing is, if the resource is there, great, but let's move forward. If the resource is there, we don't have to be stuck because of other people. This is the problem with compassion. We get stuck because of our empathy and compassion. And sometimes
we get bogged down, like
you gotta let go
in the quicksand. Yeah. If you just don't step in the quicksand, you don't get bogged down. You just move forward. So you got, at some point, you got to say.
Yeah. Getting back, Mike, to the $1,000 loaf of bread. You answered it exactly the way I expected. This is why we have intelligent life here, folks. Okay. That's what we have here. Exactly. I would answer exactly the same way. People think that everybody on planet Earth is going to be wealthy. That would be the case. Maybe $1,000 for a loaf of bread. I don't think so, to be quite honest. That's my personal opinion. I don't believe so. Even if everybody was a multi-billionaire, you're not going to pay $1,000 for a loaf of bread. You might pay $20 or $25, but not $1,000. Okay. So, but we're going from a system that's got 7,200 multi-billionaires worldwide. That's the amount of multi-billionaires worldwide. Look it up on Google. If the number has changed, you let me know. But 7,200 from 6 months ago. And we're going to a system that potentially is going to create a million new multi-hundred millionaires, multi-billionaires, etc. I think the multi-billionaires may go from 7,200 to maybe half a million multi-billionaires, which is a lot. But the money, like this guy says, as the old saying goes, the wealth of the wicked stored up for the righteous. You know that saying, right? And that's where we're at right now. But we have to wait for the total transition of this. But for this person to say that we'll be paying $1,000 for a loaf of bread and $700,000 for a Chevrolet car, that's crazy. That's not going to happen.
Well, especially because the currency, right? And our currency is going to revalue. So it's like I've been told, Jen, my partner on the show that I do, she got that the gold currency is going to have a 27-to-1 value. So in other words, a house that cost you $350,000 today is going to cost you $13,000 in the gold currency, because the new currency is worth so much more than that, 27 times more. So we're going to go back to like 1960s, 1970s prices on so many things.
That's for people who are awake and the people who are positioned to receive the wealth. The people who are not positioned, who don't believe in it, don't refuse to believe in it, don't want anything to do with it because it's complicated. What do those people have to look forward to?
Well, their life's going to be better. This is an interesting example. I'm going to use a medical example, actually. But there's this woman who's on Gutfeld's show on Fox News named Kat Timpf. She just had a baby, and as part of her exams, they discovered what do they call it? Stage 0 tumor in one of her breasts. Okay, so she had them mutilate her, and I think we talked about this before. Double mastectomy for something that small. So she's completely medically brainwashed, and in the same way, there are people who are financially brainwashed, and so. Like a med bed, somebody like that's not going to trust a med bed when they come out. Somebody like that's not going to take ivermectin. I can't tell you how many times I see somebody, maybe they're a celebrity on Twitter or somebody I follow, and they're like, "Oh, I'm really sick with the flu," and I'm like, "Just take ivermectin, dude. It goes away in 2 days." But it just doesn't get through. So there are people who are just never going to accept the new reality. They're not going to be able to adapt to it. But it's going to take us a couple of generations. For there are going to be people that grow up like we did in an environment where gasoline's 10 cents a gallon, and where $20,000 a year is a really hot income, right? That's a lot of money. So that's where we're headed for, Mel. Is we're headed to a reset back to, let's say, 1971 prices, when the average price of a home in the U.S. was maybe $40,000, $50,000. That's what we're headed for, and it's going to happen both in the medical side of things, and the financial side, and a lot of the old people, they're just going to stick to the old thing. Doctors and nurses aren't going to lose their jobs because we have med beds, because there are so many people who are just going to not believe in it. They're going, oh, it's going to steal your soul, or it's like Dr. McCoy with the transporter. Oh, can't do that.
Yeah. See, I talked to everybody I meet about XRP. Yesterday, Amber and I did a road trip. We went up to Daytona. She's never been up to Daytona Beach, which is only an hour up the road. So we went, had a nice road trip. We had a slice of pizza. We went to this place called King's Pizza on the boardwalk. There's only like 5 joints there, and one of them happens to be a pizza shop. I looked at the pizza and I said to Amber, "That looks legitimate." And sure enough, man, it was unbelievable. I mean, I thought I was like back in Brooklyn almost.
Yeah, Brooklyn, New York pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is amazing. So she now wants to go to Daytona just to pick up a pizza every other weekend and bring it back and freeze it, right? Crazy, right? So I'm talking to these guys on the way there to this boardwalk thing. These are old, 80, 75, 80-year-old guys. They're on a Harley Davidson. The conversation went so well that when I went back to my car and the guy's going back into his hotel, he was blowing kisses at me. He's going like this.
Wow.
We got to talking about XRP, and he said his next question to Amber says, "Can I buy it on Robinhood?" Yes. So we showed him a few things, and the light bulb started going off. You could tell when people are just enlightened.
Yeah.
Right?
Getting it.
I'm absolutely sure that we were able to change people's lives yesterday just by going out, hanging out, telling a few people about the dinars, the revaluation of wealth, the gold, the silver, the XRP, the XLM, the XDC, and showing them, hey, this is my channel. Take a picture of it. Go follow me. Go learn. Go to QFS1776.com. Watch all the videos. It's a free university so that you know what's coming. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing that. And so I'm leading it to something. They can't stop the algorithms when you're out on the street, could they? Right? We've been doing marketing, and Elisa has had the pleasure of staying at our center for 2 days straight, and she loved it. She was like,
great.
That's why she was levitating when she was on stage. That wasn't by accident. That was by design.
You're very short, Elisa. A little, tiny little thing.
So staying alive, we got a marketing team, and we've been going back and forth, and they've been doing everything, meaning the Cabal system, to stop, because we know we have a frequency that allows the body to heal the body. It's not a med bed, but the testimonials, if you go to Staying Alive, alive spelled with 2 E's at the end, the other one belongs to the Bee Gees. Staying Alive, staying, ing, alive, 2 E's at the end. You go watch the testimonials, you'll be blown away. You can't make that stuff up. It's real, right? So now they have a backdoor system where they're sort of vague to try and collect the database of everybody that lives in Brevard County, etc. But I said to my wife, I said, I want to go sleep in the system the other day. I have this vivid dream. Of me hiring some guerrilla marketing people standing on A1A when there's 79,000 cars driving by during rush hour. And I'm actually moving on this. I'm going to put a sign together that says, your body can heal all disease, with an arrow that says here. And then I'm going to have a separate sign that's got a QR code. And it's going to say tremendous testimonials. I'm going to use the word tremendous because Donald Trump happens to love that word, tremendous.
Tremendous.
So tremendous.
It's tremendous.
There you go, with a QR code that they go directly to our Telegram page with all the testimonials, and I'm going to beat the odds. You know why?
Well, I know a guy who used to run a company called Miami Models who can get you the girls that will stand out there with the signs that will get you attention.
That's exactly what I was going next.
Perfect line.
Have somebody either in a costume, like a Joker's outfit.
No. Just get pretty girls out there. Just get pretty girls out there. That'll
girls. How pretty? How far are we allowed to go there, Mike?
It's Florida, so there should be no problem finding pretty girls. Yeah, no problem. So that's what you want to do. I'm just telling you, Mel, as a man, that's what I respond to. Okay,
then Mike, we're gonna need some hot guys out there too, because we want to get the women to come as well, right? So you got to get
working out, Elisa. So I'll go out there for a while. Now, how much
we'll put you out there with a big banana in your pants.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Can I say one sausage? Can I say one thing? Look, I was going to say one thing on the previous thing that look, we're coming into our own here. Right? We're about to be, all of us, Laura, we're all about to be vindicated. But the thing to remember is the transition to the new way of thinking is still going to take time. I think it's still going to take a couple generations. So believe it or not, we're still going to be conspiracy theorists when this is over, because although a lot of things will be acknowledged, a lot of things will be recognized that we've been talking about, there's still a whole bunch more behind it that they don't really want us to talk about yet. And we may never talk about unless we live 1,000 years. So just keep in mind that although we're about to get a lot more recognition than we've ever had before, we still have a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah.
No
so
question.
I know we're coming up on the hour mark, but I didn't want to neglect one thing, and we could go as deep or as light as we want, but the JFK files were released last week. We were talking about how they were going to be released. Mike, I want to kind of throw this towards you. I don't know if you had a chance to kind of sort through and look and dissect a little bit, like anything that, you said, oh, wow. Or was it like, oh, same old, same old?
I hate to say this, but so far, and I've not gone through all 80,000, it's same old, same old. And what's interesting is that, like, you can do there. This is the U.S. government, and I cannot go to the archive site and say, okay, I want to see how many documents mention J.D. Tippit, who was, by the way, I wrote a book about the Kennedy assassination. The second gunman on the grassy knoll was Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit, who Lee Harvey Oswald shot 30 minutes later. Only 2 documents. But the thing is, I had to go, somebody else archived, somebody else grabbed all the available files, downloaded them all, made them searchable. I had to go in and go through this whole rigmarole. Why can't I just go to the government website and search any word or set of words that I want? So they're still playing shenanigans with us. This guy, as private citizen, had to do the work that the U.S. government could have done in 15 seconds if they wanted to. So they're still trying to limit our access, right? So here's what's come out of this so far that I can see. There are a few people who wanted to blame Israel because they blame Israel for everything. that are saying, oh, well, look, it was the Israelis, it was Mossad that killed him. There's 4 documents out of 80,000 that mention Israel or Mossad, and they're literally just a few people spitting out their opinion, like, oh, this guy said this is what the document shows. It doesn't mean anything. There's no connection. There is CIA connections to people that we did not really previously completely know about. But I'm interested in Alan Dulles, who is part of MJ12. I'm interested in J.D. Tippit. I'm interested in Lee Harvey Oswald's connections to Tippit. There's very little new on any of this stuff. So what I'm seeing is that now what they want to do is the narrative is going to be, well, it was the CIA. Well, again, Laura, you know this probably better than anybody. CIA is not the top of the food chain. There are more powerful organizations behind them, whether they be the secret societies like the Freemasons or MJ12, which may have been a secret society, whatever it may be called. Your great grandfather got briefed on all these operations and everything, so I'm sure he knew about them. But the thing is, they're trying to stop it at the CIA level, and nobody is asking. I seem to feel like I'm the only one asking the question, well, who gave CIA the orders? Because clearly CIA was the muscle. Oswald had CIA ties. Everybody has suspected that. They may not have known it until a few of these documents came out. J.D. Tippit, believe me, has CIA ties. He also worked for CIA as an informant. Those are the 2 guys, Jack Ruby. They're all going to be connected, but everybody wants to blame the CIA, but there's not a single document in there that anybody has found that says who gave the order at CIA. There's some guy, James G. Angleton, who's now, he quit the CIA because he found out a small cabal inside CIA was involved with the assassination. Yeah, on whose order? I'll tell you whose order. Alan Dulles, who was MJ1, gave the order. But it's like, so to make it as short as I can, Elisa, basically it feels like they wanted to go to a certain level of exposure, but they don't want anybody asking those next uncomfortable questions. And so it's now going to become common knowledge that, CIA killed JFK. Well, who in CIA? It's kind of like the 2020 election. We all know they stopped counting votes in 7 swing states at 2 a.m. Eastern time. What we don't know is who gave the order, and nobody's asking that question anymore. Same thing here. We all know that CIA was the muscle to taking out John F. Kennedy because of the people affiliated with him. But nobody's asking who gave the order and why. Mm-hmm. And the answer is that President Kennedy and the Russians, Khrushchev, were going to go to the moon together. And that stuff is supported. So I've been through a lot of the documents. I'm disappointed. There's no mention of Beverly Oliver. Who's Beverly Oliver? She's the babushka lady. You can see her in the pictures with the babushka on, taking film of the president. And she says, FBI came and asked me for my film, and foolishly, I gave it to him and I never saw it again. So there's all these questions that still are not even mentioned in these files. I checked, a lot of people want George Herbert Walker Bush to be involved. He wasn't. There's no indication other than one document. No, he was not there.
What are those photos that are out there that show that he was there?
That is Dallas Police Detective Ira Trantham. I have another picture from another angle of the same man standing in the exact same spot, and it is Dallas Police Officer Ira Trantham.
So that's just propaganda.
It's just people. So the crazy
Photoshop here.
Yeah, well, they don't. Well, no, I mean those pictures. Those are pretty solid pictures. I think they're pretty good. Taken by a photographer, at the time who was just taking. So, Bush did. There are 2 things about Bush that are interesting here. Is he did call after the assassination, and he was in Tyler, Texas, which is 2 to 4 hours away. And he said, "I have some information. I think about this Lee Harvey Oswald character." And he drove to Dallas later that night, but he's not depicted in the picture 30 minutes after the shooting like that guy in the suit. That's not him. And then there's another document that mentions a George Bush of the CIA. And people are like, that was from the first document released in 2017. And I'm like, wow, George Bush. But there's another guy who worked at CIA at the same time in the Dallas office. Guess what his name is? George Bush. He denies that the reference in the other document is to him, but nobody knows. So I think it's a case where Bush was nobody at that time, but maybe was trying to become somebody. So he stuck his nose in.
In your opinion, did Lee Harvey Oswald pull the trigger? Yes or no?
Yes, 3 times. From the 6-4 window of the Texas School Book Depository. I don't think there's any question about that. He was one of the shooters. He hit the president in the back. The bullet came through the soft tissue and then began to tumble and struck John Connally sideways and ended up in his left thigh. I think that's plausible.
Real experts.
At least 3 shots, but there's sonic evidence of a 4th shot, which was the one that came from the grassy knoll, I think, fired by J.D. Tippit. But
yeah, I mean, there's level of shooters. Marksman, okay, I believe, what's his name? Jesse Ventura. He said you could have hit a freaking squirrel from 2 feet away with that thing.
Yeah.
It's the most inaccurate Italian rifles ever manufactured, ever.
Well, but again, if you look at Oswald, he was a pretty good shooter, and only one of the 3 shots he took struck the president, whereas nobody knows what the guy in the grassy knoll was using. I'm just saying, I've been focused on establishing, was there a second shooter? Because if there is, you've got a conspiracy. And even Trump came out the other day and he said, well, Oswald had help. So the thing is, it doesn't, to make it as short as I can, it hasn't moved the needle forward on anything. The blame Israel crowd is still going to blame the Jews like they always do. There's very little evidence to support that. There's no real evidence of the mob.
Can't say Donald Trump is on the side of the Jewish people. Okay, he's very neutral on this. He's cutting right down the middle like a hot knife through butter, and he's basically not taking a stance. He's basically calling it out for what it is, basically saying, yes, the Jews are involved.
Well, possibly, but again, all the intelligence agencies stuck their nose into this all around the world. Spanish intelligence, Russian intelligence, Israeli intelligence. Of course they did. Of course they were digging around afterwards, or even they had heard rumors before that this was going to happen. Cuban intelligence, apparently, according to some Cuban intelligence guys, say that they heard. They were told to focus all of their listening devices on November 22nd, 1963, on Dallas and Washington, D.C. So they knew something was going to happen. That apparently was in the 2017 documents. And came out back then that the Cubans were told, hey, get focused on these 2 areas because something's going down today. So,
well, Mike, we
just haven't got anywhere.
I want to just clarify, when you said the Jews.
No smoking gun. Let's put it that. Let me just finish, Elisa. There's no smoking gun for anybody's theory.
Okay, but I just want to say, when we say the Jews, we say the Israelis, we're not talking about the Jewish people like that we know that we're friends with. We're talking about, in most cases, the establishment, the government behind it, the people, we want to call them the Khazarian mafia, we want to call them, the Zionists, whatever. We're talking about the establishment, the government. We're not talking about Jewish people. Just like you talk about the Vatican, you're not talking about Catholics. You're talking about an organization, a system that has been corrupted and that is involved and flows through a lot of these control systems throughout our world. So I want to make that very clear, because this is not
Laura,
about.
Yeah, Laura, you must have a few opinions on all this. What do you think?
Yeah, name stealers, the true Jews. I mean. So, I mean, even looking at the Kabbalah and the infiltration of all of this uses 10 spheres. 10 spheres relates to 10 strands of DNA. The 10th Stargate and the Draconian DNA is functioning on 10 strands, which is all connected. It's supposed to be 12 spheres to complete the Tree of Life. And this relates to the planetary grid network and the dark technologies that were installed in the planetary grid network to create these reversals. So the history of the Khazars goes real deep. And so, I mean, the ancient Hebrews, I mean, why all these Holocausts? It's to take out or to pit against each other.
Isn't that symbol of the Azov battalion that Zelensky's always wearing on his shirt, that sort of double, that's Khazarian, right? Isn't that that symbol that Zelensky's always wearing? That's Khazarian, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, if we look at 7 root races, 5 cloister races that make up 12, the 12 tribes, the Essenes, then you have this massive infiltration. We're dealing with imposters, just like you said about the Vatican.
Right. They stole identities.
We're dealing with imposters that are pitting us against each other so that the root races don't come together to restore our 12-strand DNA. And that's why there's Holocaust and genocides, the Aryans and the Hebrews. And now it's like the Nazis against the Zionists. And then the word, Germany and the Jewish people get lost in the mix, and it has nothing to do with them. They've just either been mind controlled or they've been taken out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just about what you were saying about, the CIA and just, deep state.
They're not the top of the food chain.
Right.
We got to ask deeper questions, right? I mean, we got to ask the deeper questions and
dig deep into the history of it all. They're name stealers. And even the name Yahweh, the Orion Group is hiding behind that. The Anunnaki manipulated ancient texts, even the Emerald Tablets. There's just a lot to look at.
Yehovah, Yahweh. Yep.
Well, and the problem, like we've been talking about, is that people who are not studying this, who are not aware and digging deep and going down these rabbit holes, right? Obviously, Mel, our audience and people are aware, but majority of the people, they just don't know. So they will fall into these traps, not knowing our galactic history, not knowing about what's been going on, not knowing about the Khazarian Mafia and how they stole identities and all that kind of stuff. And they get very triggered and they feel like it's we're talking bad about, your average friend who's a Jew or your average Catholic, and it has nothing to do with that.
It's out of control on social media. I mean, I joined Twitter again after losing 2 accounts, and I just cannot believe some of the dynamics going on, and all this praise too of the Nazis and Hitler. And yes, it started off very, very different than what it became, and there's so much history there as far as Aleister Crowley, Churchill, 1929. That's when the Draconian Alliance happened because they reached warp 1. Tesla. Anyway, there's a lot of layers to peel back, and the most unfortunate part of it is that it keeps us conquered and divided as the humanity. We have to realize where the infiltration has happened and come together and heal from this, and not cast each other as the enemy. Let's look at it like a bigger misunderstanding that we haven't. You just haven't had that breakthrough. We have more to dig into. That's how we win the war. We have to win the war from within. We have to win the war amongst each other and recognize the games that are being played.
Absolutely. I think we've come to the end of the show. I think this is great. This was great.
Yeah.
It always is great. You notice the show just molds together. I think this is the right team here. I think we got the right conversations going. I think it's the right mix, the right chemistry. I think it's just molding together really, really well. Now, in regards to staying alive, folks, we could absolutely use all hands on deck for marketing. So if you want to help us with any ideas you have, or maybe you're an expert marketer for local advertising in Brevard County, we want to focus on Brevard County and then the surrounding counties, etc. There's plenty of people there to be able to really change the outcome of what these businesses should really be doing. I can tell you that we have spent countless tens of thousands of dollars in advertising only for our ads not to be seen. In other words, we're putting out the ads of people saying, yes, I went into the system. Yes, I did have cancer, and it's not the system that cured me, but my body recognizes the energy, the frequency, and it was my body that was able to reverse my stage 3, my stage 4 cancer. It's the body it's the doctor within your body itself that actually fixes you, not the machines. The machines are not medical devices. So if you know how to get around the algorithms and you're a really smart marketing person, do not call us to help you with your crypto wallets and stuff like that. Please. I mean, we have people calling our healing center saying, could you help us with our wallet? I'm like, this is a healing center.
Well, Zester does that. You can always just pass those people on to Zester. He's good at helping people with that.
There you go.
Get a little kickback out of it.
Yeah, the number for the healing center is 321-503-1670. I'll repeat that number, 321-503-1670. We want all hands on deck because I am committed to making sure that when it's all said and done, that in the next 2 years, 3 years, it might take 5 years, who knows, to turn it around to where we got the medical industry on the run and turn things around to where frequency, sound frequency and vibration is the medicine of the day. It's coming, but we need all hands on deck in order to make it happen. Look, the big conglomerates, literally the multi-trillion-dollar corporations, have a foothold, a very strong stranglehold, if you will, on Google and YouTube and Facebook and so on. It's very difficult to get around their algorithms. So anybody out there, again, that knows how to get around the algorithms, I'm asking you, 321-503-1670. It's not for crypto wallets. It is for, learning how to navigate this uncharted waters, if you will, and figure out how to sort of use some back doors that they left open so that we can get the message out to the major public. Thank you. Anything else you guys add?
It's great to be here with you guys. My website's cosmicguide.org, and I look forward to next week and seeing you all again.
Get on over to my Rumble channel, Real News Live with Mike and Jen is what it's called. Follow me there. Subscribe. MikeBara.blogspot.com is the blog, although I'm a little behind in posting shows and stuff. Just stay strong, stay faithful. I think we're on the brink of some really, really major changes here very soon. So
yeah, I think we've got Mel. I have to agree with you. I think we've got a great chemistry going with this group. I'm very honored to be with you guys. My site is elisavalentino.com. Check out, my healing coaching modalities as well. And just so grateful to have this platform every week.
Awesome. Well, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. I'm sorry we were late for on this one for an hour. It happens. We're in the middle of a fucking war, man. We're only an hour late. We could have been cancel the show altogether because we're in the middle of a war. Okay. But we didn't cancel the show. So get the word out there because this show is going to grow exponentially. We're very, very patient people. We're going to make sure that we get the word out there, and through you guys out there, we absolutely beat the algorithms every day of the week because you're going to push it with your finger to your friends. Put it in your subject line, okay, or put it in your signature line on all your emails. Make sure you join the Mel Carmine show, okay, or the forecast, whatever you want to call it, every Monday between 4 and 5 typically is when it's supposed to happen, but it can happen between 5 and 6 because there are bumps in the road. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you all on the next one.